Hello! Hello! You just listened to the best thing in Dark Souls 2. How are we all doing? It's got some good music, Dark Souls 2, but Ruin Sentinels, that's very good. Hello, hello, hello! Hello. Hello. I've made a few changes. I've put up a thing on my on the welcome screen, a sort of image carousel thing that I very quickly programmed. And yeah, I can put stuff there. I'm going to put the names of Patreon supporters there. so that they can get a nice little sort of thank you and shout out, and I can also advertise merch and things like that. I'm sure Tri would be proud. Yeah. Also, I can recommend your guys' streams to people who might be new. Yeah, there's plenty of things I can put there. But for now, I've just very quickly made these over the course of the last hour, so... it's less becoming a pro and more running out of space on the screen to put all the information I need, so I thought if I have a thing that changes, ooh, so I can do stuff. So yeah. Hello, how are we all doing? Do let me know about volumes and things like that, because we're gonna, well, music's gonna be a bit up and down anyway, because the Dark Souls soundtracks tend to be all about sort of dynamics and stuff like that. But yeah, I'm doing great sweaty. I mean, yeah, both of those things. Speaking of which, hang on, I'm gonna put a fan on. Professional. I'm very professional. Don't mind me. It's absolutely fine. Right, hello. Just do a wild and messy collage to irritate Tri. I mean, that's pretty much what we're going to do today, I think. So what this stream is, this is an experiment. I like doing experiments on streams and all that sort of stuff. But the basic gist of this is Dark Souls 2. The Dark Souls series has always had a bit of sort of... not an obvious story. It's sort of something you have to piece together yourself, and even then you might not get it right. He's incredibly professional, said so himself. Yes, indeed. But Dark Souls 2's story is simultaneously hidden and doesn't really... It's not worth putting together. I have watched videos on bits and pieces of the story, and it doesn't exist. Yeah, it's just kind of not there. It's just a sequence of bosses. Dark Souls 3 is a bit better. I think there's some stuff that links things together, and it's, you know, there's at least some sort of connection between the major bosses in the game and all that sort of stuff. 1 has the strongest story, I think, but 2's is just whatever. And I suggested once upon a time that it might be fun to try and take the bosses in Dark Souls 2 and then just try and write our own story using them. So that's what this is. With Scholar of the Second Sin, named after Scholar of the First Sin, which was the remake thing of Dark Souls 2. They moved stuff around. We're going a bit further than that in as much as we're rewriting the whole thing. But yeah, I just thought this might be fun. It's basically an AU, Dark Souls 2 AU. First boss, Tree Man, he sure be a tree. So yeah, what I'm going to do is I've made little thumbnails of each of the bosses. I'm going to introduce you to them roughly. I'm not going to tell you their names. I'm not going to tell you where they are in the story, what their significance is to the story. I'm just going to describe them. And then you guys try and pick out the ones that stand out to you, the ones that feel like they should be important. And then we'll start writing stories sort of around them. You love not knowing anything and making stuff up as we go. That is exactly what this stream is. So, yeah, that's hopefully this should go well. If not, it's going to be a mess. Possibly both. Okay, how am I going to do this? It should be... Oh, hello. No, that's not a thing. Give me a sec. Things. Technical difficulty. Do you know that professional thing I was talking about? Oh, it's working now. That's strange. There it is. Hello. So yeah, these are just random bosses in random orders. I'll just introduce them to you as we go along. This is a saber-toothed tiger. Quite big. It's white. Black and white. The first time you meet it, it's invisible. You've got to find a thing to stop it being invisible. We don't need that in our game, but it's a thing that can happen. Yeah. So a big saber-toothed tiger. That's the first boss. Again, pick out the ones that you think you like. And yeah, we'll go with that. On the other end of the spectrum, we have a man in a frog. This is a big head in a frog with arms. Yeah. That's a thing in the game. I think this is probably one of the most creative designs in the game. It's a bit straight. Hang on, it's not Bayonetta from memory. Where's the thing? Get rid of that. Go away. Shush. Yeah. I've just got rid of it, Plamps. Man and frog. Julia was here? Kind of, yeah. It's kind of interesting. So there's man and frog. Then there's this fellow. Sort of all silver armor, sort of big, imposing, has a sort of... That crown of thorns on top is part of the armor. It's all made of metal. This boss's gimmick is a massive shield, which is a mirror, and people come out of the mirror and support them and attack you. So yeah, big mirror guy, big mirror friend. And by friend I mean boss. So yeah. Then there's this, which is I did these quickly. Can you tell? He has a heart nose. He does. If you look at the official art, it does actually look like that. This is a rat, apparently. Looks slightly more like a rat than the one I did during my from memory thing. Music is very quiet. Hang on. Let's turn it up. Oh, that's because it's a Bloodborne thing. It's very quiet anyway. It's not a bunny. It's a rat. It's a rat, and it's got a mohawk. There is literally nothing else remarkable about this. It's a rat with a mohawk. It's the size. Well, it's not the size of a rat. It's pretty big. It's about the size of a big dog. But sorry, miss. The next one you're probably not going to like, because not only is it a spider, it's a spider with two heads, one on the front, one on the back. Yeah, and it's quite large. I suppose for a rough sense of scale. Sort of like you're sort of like down here. But we can also make things bigger and smaller. If we're just using the assets of the game, we can scale things up or down. So yeah, big spider friend. That's a thing. Shoots lasers out of the mouth. That's the thing that happens. On the right, suddenly colour. Yeah, I couldn't be bothered to draw gargoyles. There's gargoyles as a boss. They're pretty much the same as the gargoyles in Dark Souls 1, only there's more of them. Yeah, they fly around, they breathe fire, they attack you with spears. Yeah, gargoyles come to life. It's a spiderodips. You're going to say scrap gargoyles because they're already there? That's fair enough. Two friends with the body of one, indeed. Then there's these things, which you may or may not recognise. This is two horses strapped together on the front of a chariot. The first part of the fight is that you have to stop the chariot, and the second part is defeating the horses, and they could kind of fight together, as it were, as one unit. They're supposed to be horses. This is the old drawing I did from memory because I can't draw horses. So yeah, two bros chilling in a spider. I don't think that's how that works. Then there's this happy friend. This is Skull Person. They have a scythe. The scythe's handle is a spine, if I remember correctly. They're quite large. The lower half of them is basically a pile of skulls. So like a skirt made of skulls. Yeah, Skeletor. Yeah, you can call it Skeletor if you so desire. Skull skirt, indeed. Then there's a dragon. This dragon is it breathes fire, as dragons do, but it also breathes poison gas. Partly something to do with the fact that it's a bit infected from having a spear through its chest. So yeah, that's the thing. It's not doing well, bless it. And that spear's been there a while, so it's all a bit poisonous and unpleasant. So we've got Poison Dragon. Then we have a pile of bodies mashed together into one big body. This is literally corpses. Like this thing has arms and sort of like it's just a sort of mass of bodies. It's a big thing. But it acts as one entity, which I think is a cool design. I like that. Corpse Man's your least favourite superhero. Best boss. I do like this boss. This is one of the ones that kind of stands out to me from the base game. Okay, so we've got that. Then there's these two friends. It's sort of not particularly clear. Hang on, sort of. There's supposed to be helmets and stuff. Anyway, these two friends, they work together. One of them has kind of like sort of lightish armor, and the one has sort of darker armor. They both have swords. This one has a small sword. This one has a big sword. They heal each other when the other one loses health. Yeah, they work together as friends, which is quite nice. BD said this boss you want to work for. Which one? That one, the Rotten. Oh yeah, this is the Collective. Yeah. I forgot about that. And this is the power couple that he was talking about, and these are the ones that were sanctioned by HR. Ornstein and Smo, on the other hand, were not. Chess pieces, you can think of it like that if you want. We're completely rewriting what these things are, so it's up to you. Then we've got this fellow. This drawing doesn't really make any sense, but it's a a samurai, essentially. A samurai knight. Sort of like a cross between the two. It has very sort of fast movements with long pauses between them. It's quite sort of... It's a fun boss. It's one of my sort of favourite mechanical bosses. So yeah, samurai knight, basically. You like the idea of chess pieces? Write it down. Right, that's a good idea. Chess pieces. Chess pieces. Then we've got Ernstern, who is in the game for reasons. It's literally Ornstein from the first game, apart from the fact that instead of lightning attacks, it has dark attacks, dark lightning. I think other than that, the moveset is identical. So, Ernstern's in the game, unless we don't want him to be, obviously. It's up to you. Then we've got these two friends, or rather one friend, I suppose two. This is a couple of lizards that are conjoined at the hip. They share one set of legs, but they have two sets of arms. One of them has two clubs and one of them has two swords, and they face opposite directions because you can't backstab it if it doesn't have a back. What's with the two things is one thing in this game? I don't know. Interesting. Why don't you remember any of these? Because it's Dark Souls 2, and there's no reason to remember them, and that's why we want to rewrite it. So they're fun. I like them. Then there's this guy. I didn't really know what this guy looked like until I looked up an image of it today, and it's got this weird face in a face. It's kind of Bayonetta-ish. Yeah, Bayonetta enemy. The rest of the design is cooler. I think it's sort of it's like a knight's armor with a cape, but the armor looks simultaneously frozen and burnt, which is pretty cool. So yeah, it's just sort of like a mix of stuff. Sits in Dark Crystal mythology. I mean, if I had a Netflix subscription, I would watch it, miss. Just leave it at that. Yeah, so we've got Babyface. That's the thing. Frozen, burnt Babyface. Then there's this friend, who is very big, very tall, and has a hole instead of a face. Also appears to have been in a few battles because there are things impaled through them, and arrows and swords and stuff. Whole face, indeed. It's an easy way to remember that one. Speaking of holes. So there's that. Then there's these friends. In the game there are three of them. We don't have to have that ourselves, but they're very tall, very slender. Their armor is brass, which is sort of a nice sort of factor. It's got a very round shield with round bits on it, like a Dalek. I again really like these designs. That's just me. I think this is one of the only sets of armor from Dark Souls 2 that made it into Dark Souls 3. In fact, it became quite important in Dark Souls 3. Evidently, Miyazaki liked it as well. But yes, there are these guys. They're very tall, slender. They're kind of balletic in their movements, if that helps. Very sort of smooth movements. Almost like the sort of dancer. It feels like a prototype for the dancer. Hello, Crow! Thank you for the coffee. That's very kind. Then we have this friend, which we drew last time, which was Dark Sun's thingy-mabob. Avatar, that's the word I'm looking for. For a while, this is a prisoner of some description. They have a mask strapped to them. They're covered in chains and shackles and manacles. They have a sword, a hunchback, not a lot of clothes, and they... Well, I suppose that's about it that's relevant for us. Prisoner fighter. Simple. Yeah, sorry for Crow, you've just arrived. I'm just going through all of the bosses in Dark Souls 2. We're going to write our own story based around them. That's it. That's the idea of the stream. Then we have big bulky guy. I couldn't really draw a good picture of him because he's just a guy in armor. Shine head. So yeah, I thought I'd illustrate that this was shiny metal. It's kind of red. The metal's sort of red painted. I don't know quite how that works. But yeah, this is just a big guy in armor with a big old shield and a big old spear. Really nothing more remarkable than that. There it is. Then there's this friend, who was illustrated very kindly by Try earlier today, who is just a bundle of roots and fire. Like a tree caught fire and it came out of the ground. Like, that's what this boss is. I couldn't draw a thumbnail, so Try did it for me. Thank you, Try. I hope you're having a good time. So yeah, that's that second row. I think there's like 4 rows or something. Then there's this fellow who this is my favourite picture from the draw, the boss brush we did for Dark Souls 2. This is a dragon. It's a dragon. About it, really. It's very big. Like you're probably about the size of one of its feet. But apart from that, it's a dragon. Yeah, nothing more to say. Then there's desiccated lady. Oh, she's got more hair than that. Hang on. Yeah, this lady also looks like she's made of trees, but then the trees got turned into flesh. And then she grew this weird plant collar thing, which is also made of flesh. She doesn't look well. Tree turned to flesh, yeah. Yep, indeed. Lots of kind of roots, but they're not roots, they're flesh. Strange. The gimmick of this boss is that this boss summons in other enemies to fight for them, so... yeah, although she does have a big hammer, scythe, sickle thing, so she can fight herself. Then there's this friend. I think you can kind of guess the gimmick of this, apart from the fact that it's not obvious from this picture that maybe, you know, maybe it's not obvious that she also has a snake tail instead of legs. Her bark is far worse than her bite. It is indeed, because she uses her own head to cast spells. The head screams and then a spell comes out. It's pretty cool. Yeah, so it's Snake Lady with missing the head, and who uses their own head as a wand, kind of. Then there's Scorpion Lady, Scorpion Centaur. She's doing alright. She burrows down into the ground and jumps out at you and attacks you. Attacks you with her tail, and Resident Boob Scorpion, indeed. Yeah, it's like Perseus using Medusa's head to turn people to stone. That's probably what it was inspired by. There's a kind of mythology things going on in here. Boob Scorpion, indeed. You're making a poor joke, but you're loving the delay making your jokes appear for other bosses. Oh, I see. Well, actually, kind of it worked for that one. I get that it was for that one, though. That's fair enough. So yeah, we've got Scorpion Lady. You hate this Boob Scorpion. I like her. She's waving, saying hello. It does have 8 legs, so that might be why you don't like it. Then there's this fellow. This is a guy in armor with shining eyes who floats off the ground. Big old shield, big old sword. Doesn't fly. Gets carried around by an eagle, actually. But just kind of floats, which is interesting. Yeah, then there's Jabba the Hutt. There's no reason for me to draw this. It's literally Jabba the Hutt. Jabba the Hutt is a boss in this game, pretty much. It's not called Jabba the Hutt, but it's Jabba the Hutt. Yeah. Look, if you thought this was lazy, you just wait. You just wait. So Jabba the Hutt's a boss. Then we got this guy. This guy's interesting. Sort of big, looks... I think the bottom half of the armor looks like it's kind of melty. But their main gimmick is that in their right hand they have a sword, and in their left hand they have a sword that's about 10 times as big, and looks like it would take 10 people to lift off the ground. And they kind of alternate between the two of them. I think it goes on fire at some point near the end of it, but yeah. So that's a big knight with very, very asymmetrical sword usage. He is anime? I suppose, yeah. On the flip side, we have fantasy. There is the Balrog, who is a Balrog. It's a Balrog. The Balrogs in this game. Then there's these guys, who are Skellybobs with crowns. Their gimmick, they kind of float off of thrones when you meet them and sort of float down to you and attack them, and when they die, their soul disperses and they reanimate as lots of lesser skeletons, who then gang up on you. So yeah, they're fun. Very good friends. I like them. They're cool. This is one of the few bosses that I wrote preemptively. I wrote a comic for them if I was ever going to do Foggate for Dark Souls 2. They're very silly. I like them. They become a gang. Indeed, they do. Then there's Bellboy. You may recognise this one from the Drawfee series. This guy is quite big, and he has a bell for a hammer. Who also uses a bell. Bells are used to cast miracles in Dark Souls 2. So it's kind of like a cleric. His armour, again, I think is sort of goldy bronze. And he has a bell for a hammer. That's his main thing. Yeah. Bellboy. No. Oh, we got into the last line. Okay, then we have sad, wrinkly man with a beard and plaited. I don't know what's the name for the sort of the hair that comes off the temples. I'm sure there's a name for it because it's religiously significant. Anyway, he's a big old sad, wrinkly man. He looks like he's rotten. He's green. He carries around a big sword, and by carries I mean drags. He's quite half-hearted. He's kind of lost enthusiasm. It's the guy from the Lord of the Rings film. What about the Balrog? No, the Ring? Yeah, maybe. I mean, there are actually similarities to Lord of the Rings in this story. Bong Man, the Bobbit. Anyway, then there's this friend. This friend is a big animate suit of armor with a fire inside of it. It carries around a big sword. Halfway through the fight, it stabs its sword into its own open, fiery stomach, and it goes on fire. Oh, the bell guy. Oh, I see, Bong Man. I get it. Yeah. Yeah, that's basically this guy's deal. He's on fire inside. He has a butt face. He does indeed. I only really noticed that when I drew this. Then there's this happy little fella. It's a big thing. You can fit underneath this, just about the size of Sif from Dark Souls 1. It jumps around, sort of playfully. It swipes at you. It throws up on the floor. That's pretty much what it does. It has people. Its teeth are very wonky. I didn't notice that again until I drew this. Its teeth are kind of wonky and square, which is a bit strange. So yeah, that's a thing. Then there's another whole face. Only this whole face has a crown and clothes, and doesn't have things going through them. So it's doing a bit better off than the other whole face. So yeah, it's cool. That's one of the ring wraiths. Yeah, pretty much. And then there's the Disturbed album cover, as was dubbed from the Drawfree episodes, and is pretty accurate, to be honest. I didn't know Disturbed album covers until today, and I looked it up, and it's like, yeah, that's this boss. Add 2 more arms and some wings, and you're done. Your bus turned up way early, so you missed it even when you were trying to catch it. Oh dear, that's annoying. How dare it? How dare it? It's very unkind. And so yeah, you've got the guy, I believe this character is referred to as in the lore of Disturbed. So yeah. There are other bosses in the game. I have eliminated some of them for being repeats of previous bosses, multiple copies of previous bosses, just 3 dudes. These are the ones that are kind of important. So yeah, we can do what we want with these. Which ones you can have a coffee then, I guess. Fantastic. So yeah, which ones sort of just there is Gank Squad, which I don't know their actual names. They all have actual names. They're just 3 guys, and they're a boss apparently. And there's also the Congregation and the Prowling Magus, which is basically a bunch of enemies in a room. The Prowling Magus I probably could have put on here, but no one really cares. Just remembered Boat Boss. Ah, cool. So yeah. Where do we start? Do any of these particularly stand out to you as final boss or most important boss or something like that? Just the boss that everything's sort of building up to and the story revolves around. Butthole is final boss. Again, if you know the game, that's fine. But you're welcome to dissent. We're here to have fun. None of them look special. See, that's the thing. That's the thing I was thinking, is none of them really feel special. But in Dark Souls 1, the final boss and the most special boss and most important boss is also just a guy who's kind of burnt out. Pretty difficult, but nonetheless. The horse! The horse is the most special thing. The Collective seems like a final boss. Collective? Can we all order bosses in terms of how many pieces are in them? How many pieces? The Corpse Man? The Corpse Man's interesting. And the final boss is the Collective. I'm confused. I'm always confused. You always find a way to confuse me, you guys. Corpse Man is collect. Oh, I see. I see. So we're going with Corpse Man as the collective? He looks like an executioner type of fella. I mean, you could have a story where the executioner takes over the kingdom somehow. I mean, that's Sultan Sanctuary, isn't it? Well, no, but the executioner doesn't, but the axe does. That's an interesting story. 2 horses are 2 pieces, and many corpses are many pieces. Oh, I see. So we rank them by piece. Would the skeleton friends, would they count as 3 pieces, or would they count as like 50, which is what they turn into? Also, we can play around with bosses. So, for example, there is a boss which is this tiger up here. There is another boss in the game which is 2 of these tigers. So, we can do stuff like that. We can have multiple copies of these bosses if we want. We can change their size, their locations, all that kind of stuff. We just can't mess around with their design. Revenge of the Whole Faces. Giant horse. We could have giant horse. Yeah, it could be like sort of, what's it called? Colossus. Not Colossus of Rhodes. Shadow of the Colossus, that's it. Massive horse. Do you like the idea of chess pieces? Like you have the ones we dubbed as chess pieces, knights and leading up to the king, maybe? Hear you out? We can hear you out. And you're being played the whole way through. We scrap every boss except the collective. Well, this is going to be a short story, isn't it? First boss, 1 corpse. And then it just builds up. I like that idea. Or is it going to be 4? Oh, 3 corpses. You guessed it, oops. I should probably have chat on screen for this one, shouldn't I? Do I have the chats? Chats should be here. Where is chats? That'll be on the browser. And existing chat mix. Bingo, there you are. Be down there. Ah, the scalene triangle. It's put there for a reason. Anyway. So we seem to have good votes for the collective being the final boss. We can call it what we want. Again, I haven't given names. You can name these things as you desire and incorporate them into the story however you wish. So yeah. So I think people seem to like the collective at the very least. Whoopsie doodle. It's the wrong tool. There we go. So the collective is at least somewhat important to us. The collective, we can call it the collective. Give it a sort of temporary name. So we have the collective. Keep stealing everyone's corpses. Yeah, it's more difficult the more things you've killed through the game. How about that? Everything you've killed goes into this thing. It's a bit like a tombery. You know, it's more powerful the more you've killed. Call it Amazon. So it's on fire. No. Bezos. Oops, and I are on the same page there. Final boss is Jeff Bezos. The collective / Jeff Bezos. We're not taking this seriously, by the way. As if anybody ever thought we would. Just in case I put this up on YouTube and anybody thought, oh, this is actually sort of an interesting way of retaking all these things and putting them back together. Nope, we're going to be doing this. So that's the hidden name in the lore. You find that out by reading the item descriptions. It's called the collective in the fight, and you can learn that it's actually called Jeff Bezos in the background, in the lore. So precisely why is this boss sort of the big bad? What is it orchestrating? How does this connect? Also, sorry, I should probably sort of add a little bit of context to this. A lot of the Dark Souls games, we don't have to do this ourselves, but a lot of the Dark Souls games, and by a lot of them I mean all 3, have a system whereby there is, you know, the end game, but before you get to the end game there are 4 significant bosses that you have to kill in order to progress. Those significant bosses have their own story and world around them. So we could then focus on that. What are the subsidiary 4 bosses that will have their own stories? So in Dark Souls 1, that's the 4 Lord Souls. In Dark Souls 2, it's the the old souls, old lords, something like that. And in Dark Souls 3, it's the Lords of Cinder. But in Scholar of the Second Sin, it can be whatever you like it to be. So again, you can pick out 4 more that kind of stand out to you as being significant, as being like, oh, they can have their own area. They can have their own sort of, you know, big side story that fits into whatever the collective is doing. All the fancy armor boys. That's a lot of them. I mean, what is it? That's sort of butthole face, floaty guy, big sword, little sword, bellboy, chest pieces, samurai, Ernstein, maybe lizards, tiny face, ballet, shiny man, mirror man. That's a lot of them. They could probably have their own area, maybe. Sort of, they all sort of, you know, they have a castle or something, and you're working your way through that. The collective roams all the areas, slurping up people, and doesn't actually have its own arena. I was thinking it's like a traveling boss. Maybe it could be like a kind of a mega optional boss or something like that. Interesting. 3 Skelly Boys? Like the idea of 3 Skelly Boys having their own area? You just RNG every time you walk through a fog gate. What a terrible experience. Bellboy, Lanky Scythe Boys. Lanky Scythe Boys? My brain is bad. Do you mean the ballet ones? Bellboy, Lanky Scythe Boys, Mirror Boy. Like, oh yes, first boss. Lovely. So yeah. So the ones that have been said so far are the 3 Skelly Boys. And here they. Hello, Kiro. How are you doing? I have given a very brief rundown of all of the bosses in Dark Souls 2, and we're trying to write our own story based on them. Feel free to jump in at any point. Just mention bosses you like and maybe stories you want to do with them. Thank you for the stickers, by the way. Happy pandas. Yeah, so we had Skelly Boy. We had... what else? Bellboy. Bellboy has some sort of significance. By the way, the order I have presented them here is all jumbled up. There's no significance to where they are in this placement. It was alphabetical and then I messed up. So, Bellboy, like I said, boys, Mirror Boy. Got Mirror Boy. I think this boss, I'm not sure whether it was in the original game, but it isn't anymore because servers. I think this was the equivalent. It's been a thing since Demon's Souls of a boss that summons other players to fight you in the boss fight, which is kind of cool. And it does that through the mirror. I feel like he's a dead ringer for someone. Lanky Scythe Boys. Who was that? Was they these guys? Maybe? Ballet Boy? Ballet Boy. Again, these guys are going to have their own sort of stories written around them. So if you want to give them sort of variety, you can. You know, you could say, oh, this one exists in the fire world or whatever. This one exists underground. This one is up in a very tall tower, etc. There was also a summoning boss in Dark Souls 1. No. Why did I think there was there? Because there is in 3, in the DLC. I don't know. It was in Demon's Souls. Is there something like that in Dark Souls 1? No, I don't think there is. I'm just an idiot. Because I'm a goof. That's true. These things are true. So the ones we've sort of picked out as significant so far are the Collective. Possibly either a big optional boss that's very powerful and gets more powerful the more things you kill. And Skelly Boys, Bellboy, Mirror Boy, and Ballet Dancers. Yes, the DS3 DLC, yes. And it was the... I think maybe I was thinking of Dark Souls 1 because you can get the armor of the boss in Demon's Souls in Dark Souls. That makes sense. We have Paranoid Dragon in here somewhere. We can have Paranoid Dragon. Actually, I think there is another dragon I missed off somewhere, but it's a dragon, so it's just a dragon. You can have as many copies of these bosses as you want. Oh, this keeps changing the tool. Paranoid Dragon. Again, if you want to think of this as sort of like there's like a significant boss that kind of runs an area and has its own story, and then we add subsidiary bosses that lead up to it and incorporate themselves into that boss's story. We can think of it like that. And there can just be other bosses that are just sort of on their own, doing their own thing. Where nothing helps you kill a boss like Clamp's going to get a coffee. Yeah. Actually, I think that wasn't the DLC, that was the base game. But, yeah. You were there for the DLC, I remember that. Can you have 72 dragons duct taped together? Might be a bit of an issue on graphics, possibly. All dragons. Every dragon. That's fine. And there's also this spiky dragon. Or maybe what you could do, you could have a thing where these two are the same dragon. But like at some point during the fight of this one, you spear it with a massive spear, and then you find it later, and it's that one. You want Ballet Boy to be a big boss just because he looks like he shouldn't be based... he shouldn't be based in this pick. Like he's just another soldier, but whoops, it's actually an important dude or something. That's an interesting idea. So a boss that doesn't look like a boss, or it would be really significant. But when you actually look into it, they had a big control over some part of the story. That's fine. You don't have to render the interior dragon. That's fair enough. You just have to render surface area, which is I'm bad at this. It's 4 pi r cubed is volume, and then 4/3 pi r squared is surface area. The idea of depressed dragon changing into stab dragon, we could do that. I mean, the assets don't look identical, but I'm sure it's a world of magic. We can do what we like. Like as a story idea, not because you like stabbing dragons. That's something just sort of came to my head. Yeah, try it. Yeah, this is the pile of fire and roots that Try painted for us because I was having a difficult time. The boss music for Skelly Boys is trap remix of Spooky Scary Skeletons. Yeah, no problem with that. Yeah, can do that. I'm sure that already exists. You don't need me to do it. Keep saying this pile of roots seeing is a belly dancing blob which is on fire. I mean, they do weird things with the size and shape of that boss. So you probably can. Yeah, so if these are our sort of significant bosses in some way, what are their stories? What are their areas? How do they link together to the collective? Invent me a fiction, friends. Write the stories you enjoy writing. So I put these two together, so maybe the same thing, but got stabbed. Stabbo. All the whole faces are piloted by a smaller whole face through the hole in their face. That's possible. I'll put the whole faces together for now. It makes sense to put them together, but we don't have to, obviously. They can be in completely different parts of the story. It's up to you. But I put them together for the sake of theming. You love to write it sparks so much joy, yet your brain gears are stuck in shitpost mode. That's fine. They're a clique. The plastics? What does that mean? Oh. Start sort of saving some space. Sorry if you were using their locations to identify them. Don't forget butthole face, that's a hole too. I suppose so, if you wish to include them. Whole faces have their own thing. The you know, maybe there's like a kind of cult of the opposite of a cult of identity, a cult of no identity. People who decided to remove their personal identities and become part of a collective, perhaps. I don't know, I'm just throwing out ideas. I haven't thought about any of this at all, so I'm just making it up as I go along. And then there's this guy who's trying to hide his face away. And he said he got rid of the face, but it's in there. Also, I suppose technically, if I'm supposed to be accurate here, this guy also doesn't have a face. It's just a hood. So he could be part of it as well, or they. I mean, I don't really gender. If you know, we're rewriting these characters entirely. We can rewrite their genders. Not the idea of having to give up your identity, become part of the collective. That's the thing. It could be, that could be a kind of religious thing, a kind of cult. Well, that's a thing you just said. Add the disturbed. The disturbed has been, well, they will be added when I sort things out. Okay, so I'll put these sort of as the sort of cult of no identity, as it were. Cult of anonymity. It deletes your identity when two slurps you. So maybe fanatics are like, I will protect the collect and shun my identity and face or whatever. So okay, I like the idea that we're kind of grouping these together into things that have some sort of collective theme. That's a sort of good idea, I think. The armors could literally be puppets, yeah, but the armor doesn't necessarily have to have anything in it. You're tired again? Oh no, more coffee. Stand up, jog around, do a little bit of light aerobics. More coffee. Giro knows what's up. Okay, so let's go to all of the sort of armor together. Maybe this is just like the armor comes from a castle that has long been abandoned and just souls collected there and tried to find something to inhabit, and now all of the suits of armor are alive and various other inanimate objects. Ornstein's armor could be alive. A remnant of a very long ago society. This armor survived and is now inhabited, which is actually a thing in Dark Souls 3. Oh dear. Mirror armor, samurai armor. What other armor? Big armor with different swords. It picks up what swords it could find. Floating armor. I suppose that's it for just explicit armor. There are these guys that they actually have faces. They're not armor, so. That reminds you of the super rad Dark Souls fan art you saw. Ooh, cool. Is it Chibis? I bet it's Chibis. Maybe each of the bosses has to give up their identity for some reason, but they haven't become part of the collective yet, so you have to collect them before the collective does. Oh, that's interesting. So you've got to stop the collective from amassing this power by collecting their soul or identity before the collective manages to do it. That's an interesting idea. But in doing so, you kill more things, and then that makes it more powerful. Not as powerful as if it had got the bigger souls, but yeah. No faces give up their identity. The armors have given up their free will, maybe. In exchange for not being added to the collective. Oh, I see. So the armor, or maybe the armor gave up the people inside it in order to be free, in order to be spared. The armor are the usurpers. They gave up the people in them. Whereas the chosen undead squaring up to save the day, and in its shadow are the shades of all the boss souls that had absorbed like a gang having your back. That's cool. I like that. I like the idea that there is actually an impetus to why we are trying to defeat this boss, and the reason we're trying to defeat this collective is because it's amassing all of the souls, and your job is to stop them from getting these things. Because as it kind of stands in Dark Souls, there's very rarely a reason you need to get things, and most of the time you're kind of tricked into doing this sort of stuff. But it'd be interesting for this to sort of have its own sort of narrative of, you know. The other thing I like about this is we could easily take this stuff and make a game of our own. We don't have to use these bosses. These are just general themes. But for now, we'll focus on this. So we have the sort of armor and animate armor group. So the animated armor group, who have either been animated from souls that have been lost over the years, possibly from the collective sort of consuming them and discarding identityless souls, or their armor that have in some way sort of sacrificed the people within them in order to retain their form. Or maybe it's the collective. Maybe this is just the dregs of the collective. The collective went through this huge civilization of knights and all these sorts of things, just absorbed the bodies, but left the souls behind in the armor. I don't know, it's interesting. Some taboos of alchemy have happened here. Definitely, yeah. There's some odd alchemical situations like this. Going on somewhere. I like this idea. We're bigging up the final boss, which is something which is Dark Souls 2 does not do. We're actually, we want this thing to be important when you fight it. I think Dark Souls 3 does a good job of not doing that, in a sense. I think it's possible to have your final boss be unknown until you go to them, and Dark Souls 3 does that well, but I prefer it when there's a build-up, when there's a lead. Okay, what else have we got? We have, still, lying around, pile of tree roots, prisoner of some description. Maybe the prisoner's the only thing with a body left in the castle of armor. We have lizards, spiders, couple of friends, chess pieces, just hanging out. We got scorpions, we've got Jabba the Hutt, we've got a dog. Got a dog that vomits. It's got stomach problems. The dragons don't fit anywhere just yet, but they can do. So we've got kind of like the theme of like an abandoned castle, perhaps, full of animate armor and objects and flying swords and things, and this sort of strange cult which is trying to sort of strip itself of its identity, either to placate the collective or avoid the collective. Let's sort of group these together in a slightly neater fashion. The only problem with this is if we've chosen these four to be the significant ones, these two are also just kind of armor. So would these go with the animated armor collective, or would they have their own thing? Would they helm their own, if you pardon the expression, helm their own sort of group or society? You was image hunting. Aw, poor Pinwheel. Aw, I like Pinwheel. Yeah, I don't know. They don't have to be, obviously. There can be people in suits of armor elsewhere. It's not a, you didn't find what you wanted, but this is nice. It's cool. It's sad, but it's cool. Pinwheel. I'm not kind to Pinwheel in my comic when I eventually get around to doing it. So, Foggate is starting up again eventually. It's just taking me a little bit of time. It'll get there. It'll get there. Right. So what have we got? You're trying to connect the reflective shield to the no faces, but your mind is drawing a blank. Well, I suppose it's kind of. This group's sort of idea of anonymity is to completely eliminate their identity. Perhaps this is sort of indicative of, rather than eliminating your identity, you just simply reflect whatever's in front of you. Like, you're not a thing, you are whatever the thing that's looking at you is, if that makes sense. So yeah, that could work. Cult of anonymity, it's sort of, its biggest power is just reflecting the person looking at it, rather than having its own identity. Which is very similar to a boss in the game I was making, actually. People run away into the mirror and the knight doesn't protect. Possibly, yeah. The mirror could also be a refuge. Okay, so I'll put these guys over here. That's cool. It's a good way of sort of connecting this together. Oops. You can also have a thing where it's like, you know, the boss itself is not necessarily the big bad. The boss could just be protecting the big bad. It's like the servant of the big bad, and the big bad is actually just a guy in a room or whatever. Or a bug under a tree, in the case of Dark Souls 1. Maybe you go through the mirror to get to the area surrounding this boss? Oh, you go through a mirror. I was going to say, it's like, how do you get to the boss and go through the mirror to get to the boss to go through the mirror? It's an infinite loop. But yeah, you could. Yeah, this could be. Yeah, okay. So Cult of Anonymity, in mirror. That's good. I like that. That's sort of an interesting sort of fantasy idea. A mirror, not the mirror. Yeah, yeah. I like that. I got there eventually. And you have to fight the boss for whatever reason and when you have to fight the boss for whatever reason, you have to fight the boss but also return back because you don't have a mirror anymore. Or maybe that's how you're supposed to get out. Maybe it's kind of like a painting of Ariamis sort of situation where you have to kind of pass through the painting in order to get back out. Once you've entered this mirror world, you can't get out until you've beat this boss and you go through their mirror to get back out. Maybe that's something. Maybe that's not the whole area. Maybe that's just like the end part of the area. But is exit to Mirror World. I like that. That's cool. Do we have to kill Kieran before or after the mirror fight? I think before, canonically. Hello. Autosave. Thank you for the sticker, by the way. How dare, indeed. Okay, so we're kind of getting together two ideas here. We've got the soulless armor, or too much souls armor, which is sort of animated. This sort of this is sort of an old suit of armor from long ago. Its use has been long forgotten, but it was animated by the souls of something or other, like Dark Souls 3. But we know what it is, because it's from Dark Souls 1. And this is sort of linked together. And we've also got this Cult of Anonymity thing, and mirror idea, sort of faceless things, and mirrors without mirrors. And mirrors with mirrors around mirrors and through mirrors. What we're left with, then, is Bellboy and Skeleton Friend. If maybe we can sort of think of these as a kind of a light and a dark, maybe sort of. This is the sort of, because in the original game you don't have to follow this if you don't want to. This guy is kind of like a big buff cleric sort of thing. The bell is a symbol of miracles and all that sort of stuff. And the skeletons are skeletons, and they've got crowns. But then you can have some sort of moral thing going on of, you know, oh, it turns out that the miracle people were doing bad things and the skeletons are actually good guys or whatever. Moral ambiguity. So what kind of fits in with these groups? Maybe we could just sort of have one for, I don't know, I was going to say one for more gallant things and one for monsters, but mostly monsters left over because we got all the suits of armor out of the way. I think maybe the chess piece guys can go well with the bell friend, or the bell friend sort of works with the chess theme. Maybe there could be the chess theme with that. Yeah, chess pieces with Bellboy. There are other things we don't have to have explicitly 4 zones. For example, we could have, you know, a kind of shared zone at the beginning with a tutorial boss and stuff like that. Chests. Pieces. I don't know what these guys are. Bishops or something. They like bishops. Yeah, there we go. So what would be other things? They're the accountants. Maybe the horses with the chest piece? That's a good idea, yeah. Horses, these are the knights. So sort of bishops and knights. And there are two of them, so makes sense. Got to pair them off. There's also a pair of spiders. I don't know. I don't think there are spiders on a chessboard. Maybe the prisoner is a pawn? Ah, we're on the same wavelength. Yeah, maybe this is the prototypical example. This is the first boss you fight in the area, and then later on you fight loads of them. A boss becoming a regular enemy makes sense with a pawn, doesn't it? What else is there? There's rooks, kings, queens. That's about it. I suppose this would be like the king or the queen. Don't know what a rook would be. I mean, there's two of these guys. Don't know if you want to make them rooks, the lizard friends. Bellboy's probably king, possibly, yeah. Maybe it's a situation where, like, the Bellboy is the final boss, but it's like... And this the chess theme is never really explained outright, because this is Dark Souls. But instead it's a kind of like... You could kind of work it out from context clues, and there is another kind of secret boss somewhere, which is actually the one pulling the strings. It's the guy controlling it, you know? What if Sad Shriveled Guy was king? Could be. Gargoyles as rooks? Could be, yeah. Scorpion Lady as queen? No, we're not going to ignore you, Kiro. All ideas are valid. We are making things up as we go along. It's fine. So we've got ideas. We could have maybe... Or maybe this guy isn't the king. Maybe he's the one doing the chess game, as it were. He's the one controlling the whole thing. He's been sort of behind the scenes in this kingdom for... Yeah, he's the player. What if the horse was king? If only. Unfortunately, if it's better for knights. But, there we are. We're going to have a Dark Souls-esque ending choice? Possibly, yeah. And there might be optional bosses at the end. Okay, so we could have, like, this is the king. Sad, shriveled guy is king. Which makes sense, because kings are pretty useless. They're just very fragile pieces that you've got to look after. And then we've got the queen. Maybe the scorpion, you said? You know, scorpion, or we could have head lady or flesh tree. What Bark Lady do again? She summons other enemies to fight for her. Is it Scorpion as queen? Could be Scorpion as queen. What's sort of important about a queen? Oh, that actually makes sense, because the Scorpion digs underground and moves around the arena without you being able to do anything, so it makes sense for the queen, because the queen's a very mobile unit. Unit? Piece. So what's that? We've got pawns, bishops, knights, king, queen, rook. Someone said gargoyles maybe for rooks, or lizard friends, or... Is this the freedom music? I recognise it for the amount of times I've fought that boss. She seemed pretty versatile, which is why you mentioned her. See, yeah, don't say ignore me. Don't say, you know, my ideas aren't very good, because they're good. And it's all, yeah, everything's available. You said gargoyles, as gargoyles are usually connected to walls of castles. That makes sense, that's cool. By the way, I just want to say, all the things that we're coming up with are about 1,000% more theming and connectivity than anything in Dark Souls 2. So rook / castle, whatever you want to call it. Prawn to king 4. And then this is the sort of chess master, as it were, the player. You are one player. This is the other one. You're Newman on a bus now. See you later. Hopefully you catch it and get to work and have a good time. He's a player. Yeah. So this is a sort of chess. It's just a kind of a manipulated kingdom. And you sort of fight these things, and you know, maybe it's sort of, I don't know, maybe there is actually some connection to some sort of game and you can work it out. Maybe this chess thing also connects to the identity thing because of the whole they're just pieces in a game but not actual people thing, possibly. Yeah. Yeah, how would this explicitly connect to the collective? I suppose the collective wants these souls because, you know, this guy has control over a lot of people, and that's why the collective wants the player's soul, because then it's an immediate rush of other souls, of all of the ones that they're thinking. Everyone's being manipulated into capitalism. I mean the collective. Okay, that's a good idea. So what have we got left? We have the Skelly Bobs. What's their sort of theme? Do they have a theme? The outcasts, the things that don't have souls. I don't know. The things that have hidden from the collective for so long that they've turned into something not human. That the idea of the outcasts? I mean, these guys have deliberately avoided it. These guys just kind of came out of the process. These guys are just the next step in the collective thing. We haven't actually had a group of people who are actively avoiding this. You don't know what the sub-bosses explicitly do? Well, that's what we work out. Then the white pieces always make the first move in a game of chess, so our player taking the first step in the game is essentially making the first move on the board. Interesting, yeah. And it's like the DLC of Dark Souls 1. The very first thing you do is fight a boss, and it's the pawn. Or maybe it's like on the other side of a long room. Okay, so yeah, what have we got? We have outcasts usually don't fit in with the collective. Their identity is too different from normal standards. Ooh, we're getting metaphorical here. I like it. Right, so what outcasts? Well, I mean, look at this group. There's a bit of an odd bunch going on here. We don't have to use all of them, obviously, but we can if we so desire. Cool, we're going to run out of things to do. Just over halfway through the stream, we've already done this much. I wasn't expecting this to actually go somewhere and have such structure. I was thinking it's just to be a complete mess. But we could, you know, go into the smaller parts of this and go, okay, in what order do you fight these bosses? How do these bosses have their own identity within their sub-story, etc., etc. Skeleton can be another bishop. Sorry, you was away for a while, don't know what's needed. That's fine. I think the skeletons are their own thing. They're part of a... I think what we're going for now is a group of outcasts, a group of things that the collective did not want. Does the importance of the boss souls add more to the collective than the regular mobs? Yes, I think they're the ones that have... These are the four bosses. These are the four souls that the collective is after because they're powerful in some way. They have a lot of sort of power and structure. Maybe like, you know, the mirror soldier is sort of, you know, storing the identity, storing the souls of all of the cult of anonymity inside them, as it were. And as a consequence is a treasure trove of souls. Sort of similar for this guy. The player has control over the souls of all of his pieces. I mean, the animated arm. We haven't actually explicitly written the story for this guy. I think, was it Chibi who said that they like the idea that this boss doesn't look like much, but is actually sort of a centerpiece to the whole thing. Skeletor? What? Oh, Skeletor. Oh, I see. Skeletor. Be another bishop. Well, we've got the sort of two bishops, as it were. They're kind of together, so that sort of works. So I feel like you are convinced at the beginning of the game that these souls are things that cannot be left out in the world. It's a bit like Final Fantasy in a sense, like or the old Final Fantasies, where there's the 4 crystals and the big bad is coming to get the 4 crystals, and you've got to go and stop them from getting them. And you're an idiot because by getting them, the boss managed to get hold of them because you took them out of the place where they were safe, etc. Who would belong to the outcasts? Yeah, so if we're going to have a kind of outcasty thing, Maybe the less humanoid things can't add to the collective and actively shunned. Well, I think I know we start here, don't we? Big pile of roots and fire. That ain't human. Or maybe this is like an NPC, and it helps you through. It's so separated from this whole situation of souls and humanity and identity, because it's just roots and fire, that it's the only thing that's impartial in this entire world. Belly dancing, roots and fire. Okay, we'll keep it as an NPC, why not? Which is not terrible, because it's kind of an NPC in the original game as well, so... The Balrog's just hanging out. That could be an optional boss. The Balrog can be just its own thing. But maybe that's the thing with the Outcasts. Maybe they're sort of not explicitly connected. They you know... Maybe they're connected by having done a favour for the Skeleton Lords or whatever, and as a consequence they're given some sort of sanctuary. Again, we're more than welcome to throw away bosses, or just sort of leave them on the side, or have them as optional. You like them not being connected. It's sort of interesting, because the thing with Dark Souls 1, which I always thought was interesting, and why I could never remember all 4 Lord Souls, is that the 4 kings don't really fit. Because they're not mentioned in any of the lore up until you get to the location they're in, and that's it, really. They were just given bits of Gwyn's soul, because apparently they were doing good things. New Londo, an offshoot of Anor Londo, one would assume. But their story is much more about the usurping of what Gwyn's going on about. So you've got this sort of subsidiary story which is acting counter to the major story. And I think that's what these sort of outcasts sort of represent. Is everything else is all about sort of souls and, you know, trying to amass power and all that sort of stuff. And then these guys are just like, we just, you know, let's just stay safe. Whatever, we're living our lives. Just doing our own thing. Could please just throw away just dog because it's just a dog? Sure. But it throws up and all that. But we can put dog there. That could be an NPC as well. I mean, we've also got just saber-toothed tiger, but it's white. It's white, black and white saber-toothed tiger. Dog in the discard pile and draw another boss. Alas, not the rules of the draw-through, or the I don't know what this is. Whatever this is. Redesign. Oh god, this isn't going to become another series. You want the lizard boys to be part of the outcast because you like them? Lizard boys are cool. I'm fine with the lizard boys. And the lizard boys can have their own sort of, you know, animalia sort of zone. They've got a lot of sort of animal friends and enemies and all that sort of stuff. It's going to be another series. I don't know how many things you could do with this, but do Kingdom Hearts maybe? Grab the bosses in Kingdom Hearts and try and write one coherent story. That'll be fun. So yeah, lizards, two-headed spider probably. That makes sense for an outcast. Sort of all the ones that really just don't sort of fit in as human, I suppose. Makes sense to have them there. Frog face, or maybe maybe frog face is like was originally something sort of human, but explicitly turned themselves, or is maybe hiding as something that would fit in this sort of outcast community. Some sort of because as part of the boss fight in this, it's sort of impenetrable once it's inside the frog suit. It covers the mouth up, as it were, as protection, and then just pops out when it wants to attack you. Like a spell gone wrong. Oh, that's cool. I like that. It was supposed to actually do the whole transformation, but it only got halfway. I like that. So sort of hiding. Incomplete spell or something. So a bit like Pinwheel, I suppose. Tried to do a spell to sort of amass power or whatever, and it didn't quite work out. Apologies for my handwriting. So what I really want to do is I want to draw like little scenes that come out of this. This sort of AU. Dark Souls 2 AU. But unfortunately we're going to have sort of time mostly trying to work out. Oh my god, we're so talented. But yeah, we're going to be spending most of our time just sort of assembling this. So what have we got? We've got Balrog might be good alongside the dragons. Oh yeah, the dragons. I forgot about that. Where did they go? Maybe they have their own area. Maybe that's an optional sort of place. Be a thing. Sorry, I keep lining these up for some reason. So we have sort of. Oh no, I've changed colour. Impartial NPC because it has absolutely nothing to do with humanity or identity. Lady What is a tree can be part of the outcast as well, possibly. Maybe a similar sort of thing, sort of. Maybe not a transformation gone wrong, or maybe the other way around. A tree that attempted to gain some sort of humanity and regrets it. Lady What is flesh tree. So what are we left with? Left with Jabba the Hutt. Do you reckon maybe Jabba the Hutt could be like the tutorial boss? So it's kind of slow, it's not too strong, but it will kill you if you're not careful. If you know the mechanics, you could beat it pretty easily, but it's sort of there to beat new players. And I think that makes sense. Again, we can always change things, by the way. We are not beholden to any of these things. It would have made sense, actually, to have this canvas be horizontal and work our way sideways, because otherwise there's a lot of wasted space on screen right now. I'll just put up a picture of something on the side. Okay, so we're left with saber-tooth tiger, beaver-tooth rat, skelly lady, and head in hands. We don't have to use any of them if we don't want to. I would like to point out at this point that when I say, you know, there's... Oh, and we can also have bosses that kind of lead up to the final boss. So it's like you do these 4 areas and then there's like a final big area where it's like you fight a bunch of bosses and then you get to the final boss. And there might be a boss behind that if you've done certain stuff. So like in Bloodborne, if you've managed to get the umbilical cords, you can fight the moon presence. In Dark Souls... No, not Dark Souls 3. Well, I suppose Dark Souls 3, the kind of big boss that you're expecting is the princes, Lothric and Lorien. But then you defeat them, and then you fight the Lord of Cinder, which is pretty cool. That can be the dragons and the Balrog. Yep, they can be in the final area. That makes sense. Maybe you fight the dragon at first, and then you go through a bunch of stuff, and then the Balrog, and then you fight the dragon again after it's been injured. Don't know how that will fit into the map of the game. That's all stuff to work out. Maybe we're... I don't know. These are all things we can think about. The one interesting thing I think about Dark Souls 2, which a lot of people don't like, but I like, is the places are connected, but only kind of on foot, if that makes sense. They don't really make sense geographically. You walk 100 steps and all of a sudden you're in a forest and the entire horizon is a forest. And then you walk another 100 steps and you're in a barren wasteland and the entire horizon is a barren wasteland. So it's kind of interesting in that regard. A lot of people complain because there's a part of the game where you get to the top of a windmill and in the top of the windmill is a lift that goes up, and when you come out of the lift you're in a castle surrounded by lava. I really like that sort of stuff, but a lot of people complain. So we don't have to have like perfectly consistent geography if we don't want to. Dark Souls 1 was sort of guilty of a similar thing, not necessarily of geography, but you know, if you go from the Undead Burg down to the Darkroot Garden, suddenly it's nighttime. It's not a... These sort of things aren't sort of set in stone, you know? You don't think it's supposed to make sense. Exactly, it's deliberately supposed to be this sort of... You know, you are being transported to a faraway place, but you're doing so while walking. And places are connected, but not in the way geometry normally makes sense. Each square of the board is its own world. Yes, indeed, which is pretty cool. It really works well for the chess theme. With all that's going on in Dark Souls game, people decided to complain about geographical locations not making sense. Well, one of the big things about Dark Souls 1, and I will absolutely praise Dark Souls 1 for this, it's one of the best things about it, is the world design is fully interconnected. There are no loading areas, there are no hub areas. The only place that you can't get to on foot is Anor Londo because the gargoyles take you, but I suppose that's technically a kind of teleport point, but you still kind of do it on foot. You have to go to that teleport point to get there. It could have just been a door. And people really like that. People really like this sort of interconnected world that has lots of loops and lots of shortcuts and all these sorts of things. And the Dark Souls 2 taking that and going, actually, we're not going to have it. We're going to have it be connected and no loading screens, but we're going to kind of cheat by having teleports you don't notice. I think people felt that was a bit of a step back. I think Dark Souls 3 went back to the way Dark Souls 1 did it, but I don't mind. I think it's cool because this is a fantasy game and you can do stuff like that. Dark Souls 1 was a bit subtler with that sort of thing. Dark Souls 2 was much more. It doesn't really have load screens. That was one of the big cool things. And Demon's Souls is all about load screens. You have this hub area, and then everything is connected together from there. And you explicitly teleport from location to location. Dark Souls was big on just having a world, and you walk around that world. Although that in and of itself causes problems, because if you've got a fire level full of lava and then a big lake full of water and they're kind of next to each other, because they can't be that far away because you've got to walk there, everything feels a bit small, and sort of cramped together. So do the dragons come first or does the collective come first? I thought the dragons would be like, you defeat these guys and then you go into the next area, the sort of final area, you unlock the final area and you fight these guys and then you fight the collective. But maybe it's like you fight this dragon, you fight the Balrog or whatever, then you fight the collective, and if you've done all the right stuff, this dragon comes back and that's like an optional last boss or something. I could do that, or the Balrog's an optional last boss, or this is just one you find out in the world somewhere. I'm pleased with this drawing because it's actually quite accurate. It looks cartoony, but it's actually quite accurate. As is this one, to be honest. I mean, the eyes I don't think are quite that big nor that dark, but other than that. But yeah, we can always change things around. We can have things after the collective. We can have things, New Game Plus only. This is something I found out while looking this up. The 4 old ones, that's what they're called, the old ones in Dark Souls 2. In New Game Plus, which is something I've never done, they don't drop their souls. They drop the souls of the great ones, or the Lord Souls in Dark Souls 1, which is kind of interesting. So it's like their souls are the same ones from Dark Souls 1. It's just been so long that people have forgotten what they were called. That dang rat boss was your Everest because you used a halberd and couldn't use your spinning. Oh no! Oh, the little statues getting in the way. That would have been. If the statues weren't there, you would have been in your element. There is rat boss. There's little rat friend. Yep. Feel like we could yeet the kitty and the rat, and the other two might be interesting for outcasts, maybe, possibly. Sorry, that was the thing I was going to say. Don't feel like we need to have like the same number of bosses in each area or anything like that. So, for example, in Dark Souls 2, one of the significant souls, the old one's souls, could be your first boss. There is one of them that you can get to as your first boss. There are no bosses before it. And there are other places where you have to fight about 8 bosses to get to them, So it's a bit unbalanced in Dark Souls 2 with regards to that. That's dumb. I mean, it's kind of interesting, but at the same time, I get what you mean. In Dark Souls 1, you've got to do a whole quest before you can unlock any of them. No, not any of them. One of them you can do. It's interesting, but also dumb. Yeah. So yeah, so don't worry about sort of balancing these things out or anything like that. That's fine. Also depends on the length of the area and all that sort of stuff. Oh, maybe we could have like Ornstein. Maybe Ornstein could be an optional boss. Possibly. It's something that you find in a room somewhere and you're like, oh, it's the thing from Dark Souls 1, but you don't have to do it. It's something that you can feel proud of finding. I really feel like I'm designing Dark Souls 2. Sort of like, how can I make the players enjoy themselves, you know? It's fun to do that. So we're thinking maybe we can get rid of the tiger and the rat, because they're just a tiger and a rat. That's fine, we're just getting rid of the ones that are just animals. Although it does have a mohawk, so... Urnstone can be optional boss, yeah. You can also just say hi to Urnstone, maybe? Maybe they're not aggressive when you first meet them, but you can fight them if you want. Like, you find it, and it's there. It probably doesn't speak, but... You know, it's just an animate suit of armour, it's not actually Ornstein. No animal cruelty in this game, I guess? I mean, there's the spider with the 2 heads. And the lizards with the 2 bodies. So I'll sort of put that there as kind of optional, non-aggressive. Like you choose to fight this boss. You're like, in order to get your nostalgia from the first game, you have to initiate a fight, and sort of you have to engage the cruelty. In order to get some sort of satisfaction. It's interesting. You like the idea that you can meet Urnstone's armor? Yeah, that's cool. I always like the idea of bosses that you have to initiate. Because a lot of the time it's just you walk into a room, you're being attacked. I like it when it's the other way around. Medusa is also optional boss after defeating Mirror Shield Lad. Oh, I see. So the Mirror Medusa sort of thing, maybe. Like this is sort of... Medusa's been trying to take down the mirror people for such a long time. I suppose this fits in with the sort of lack of identity. So literally cut off the head rather than losing, you know, the piece of the shield and use it. That's cool. Okay, so this boss is only defeatable once you've done that. That's cool. I like that. Shouldn't have lost her head about it. Where's Miss? And Crow. Crow's here, I think. Multi-purpose mirror, yeah. Use mirror. Mirror shard. To beat. That's interesting, I like that. You know, Miss, but you're proud. I mean, you were the original sort of punmeister, and then Miss also joined in, so... Yeah! Corgi, thank you for the sticker. Got the Crow Seal of Approval. It's Miss! A wild Miss has appeared. So this is... Outcasts, or offcasts. And these sort of... I don't know why I'm putting everything in speech marks. Offered a sanctuary. Yeah, that went wrong. Okay, cool. Right, so we're literally left with Skull Scythe person. So much pride. Pride! Are we going to have Skull Scythe person, or should we leave them elsewhere? Skullgang's dad? Maybe. It could be an optional boss unlocked when you beat that area, possibly. Skull Scythe, what to do. But maybe there's a thing, maybe we can do a thing where it's like a kind of Zelda sort of thing, where there's an optional boss in each area that you can only beat once you've beaten one of the other areas. So, like... This boss maybe exists in the Outcasts area, but you can only beat it after you've done the cult, so that you get the mirror to beat that one. And then there's one, you get an item from beating these guys, which you can use to defeat a boss in another one, and so on and so forth. Maybe you can do something like that. I don't know what that would you know, how that would exactly would play out. But we've got a lot of things to choose from to how to do that. So, because we haven't. Well, I suppose none of these are optional. Ah! Angry cat is judging you. I was literally called Angry Cat. Okay. Hello, Try. How you doing? I'm using your art. I hope you don't mind. This is our NPC. Yeah, I'm using your art. Hopefully, if that's okay. I'm happy to draw something instead. You are sweaty. Would you like a towel? It's hot. Oh no. Is there a sticker involving water? I don't think there is. Okay, so let's explain what we have for try so far, because I think we've actually made quite a lot of interesting ideas here. There we go. Crow's joining in with the puns. Oh, hang on. The chat is over the alerts. That's not a good idea. Let's move chat over here. Nah, look at that. Splash yourself with a bit of water. You're a sweetie, big difference. I mean, that's true. I don't know if both are true, but that one certainly is. So, okay. So the basic idea that we have for the story of this game, we are, if you are not aware, we're taking the bosses from Dark Souls 2, just the design of the bosses, not the names, not the story, anything like that, and we are rewriting the entire story of the game from scratch. The basic idea all hinges around the Collective, also known as Jeff Bezos, as you can find the name in the lore, which is just a collective of souls, and it goes around consuming and amalgamating souls from the world. And the job of the Chosen Undead in this game is to essentially collect the significant souls of the world so that the Collective does not get hold of them. And so we have the 4 significant souls, which take the form of this happy chap with a mirror, this guy with a bell, these 3 happy skeleton friends, and this animated suit of armor. Each of these represent 4 different areas. There's the cult of anonymity, which are people who attempted to strip themselves of their identity so that they were not sort of chased down by the Collective. And so they've got people with holes for faces. You've got this guy who's got a On the Disturbed album cover, butthole face, all these sorts of things. And it's all to do with mirrors and things like that. This is a boss which fights with a mirror shield and things come out of the mirrors, so on and so forth. It's supposed to be about pretty much. I mean, if you look at the designs, look up Smelter Demon if you so desire. It looks like that. It looks like that. Then we've got a sort of kingdom of manipulation, as it were, where there's a sort of a character who's sort of controlling everything. And this is sort of modelled on the idea of a chessboard, where we've got the pawn, which is sort of like prisoners who have been armed and made to fight. The bishops, who seem to be having a good time. They're happy to see you. Look at them. Knights, who you may possibly recognise. The king, who's a slightly wrinkly old man. The queen, who's a scorpion centaur. And the rooks, who are gargoyles. So that's a thing. Nice theming. Then there's the outcasts, the things that the Collective has no interest in actually absorbing because they're not strictly human. These are headed on by the Skellybobs. They seem to be having a good time. They include... They're essentially offering sanctuary to things that, you know, no longer have a home because of this thing coming through and just destroying everything. Hello, Plamps, how you doing? Did you catch your bus? Hopefully. And these include Siamese lizards, Siamese spiders, a lot of Siamese things. Man in frog, who attempted to turn into something other than human and the spell didn't quite work. And lady who's kind of like a tree but made of flesh. Yep. And then there's the castle with animated suits of armor. Either, not sure yet, suits of armor who have been inhabited by souls that have been stripped of their bodies by the Collective, or armor that's sort of left over from what the Collective came through and destroyed, or armor that somehow like gave up the people inside it to the Collective in exchange for identity, or, you know, a thing of its own. I don't know, it's cool. Every now and then your mixer audio just dies. Oh no. It's a shame. I'm just blathering on about things you've already seen at this point, so I hope you don't mind. And this includes Ernstern from the original game, who is a piece of armour in the game somewhere. And then this chap with a face in a face. So yeah, that's pretty much the gist of it. And then after you unlock all that sort of stuff, and you can go fight some things like the Balrog and a dragon, which you then stab and then fight it after it's been stabbed. And then you fight the collective boss thing. There's a couple of things with throwing away some sort of uninteresting bosses that are just animals. We have our happy little NPC, thank you for the art again, who is nothing even close to a soul or a human. It's just a bunch of tree roots and fire, so it's kind of impartial in this whole thing. Can we get the animals as familiars pets? I mean, we can encounter them in the world, there's no issue with that. You know, we pretty much ended the last Dark Souls stream by talking to a cat, so they're just happy to be there. They're having a good time. They're doing their own thing. And there's also, we were just talking about the idea. Oh, sorry. Also, there's the tutorial boss as well, who we fight, just to kind of get the hang of the mechanics of the game. Not particularly difficult, but it's there. Yeah, and we were just talking about the idea of having like a kind of Zelda system where once you defeat an area, you get a thing that allows you to defeat an optional boss in another area. So the idea Oobs came up with, I think, was this Medusa snake lady. She has a snake tail. She only becomes vulnerable after you've killed, or after you defeated the mirror area, and you get a shard of a mirror that allows you to defeat her because she's like Medusa and she turns you to stone or whatever. It's just like a petrify build-up unless you're holding the mirror shard or what have you. So we can do something like that. And we were just thinking about whether or not we can do that with something else. I like that. It just adds an element of puzzles to this. We still don't quite know what the ballet guys are doing with the suits of armour yet. Because Chibi wanted the ballet armour to be like in some way in control, but you don't really realise that. They just look like another suit of armour until you work out, this is actually what's sort of behind all this. You're back for real. Hello. But yeah, I'm actually very much into this sort of structure at the moment. I think this is a good story and definitely superior to anything in Dark Souls 2, with the possible exception of the connections between the DLC. But then I mean we're sort of doing something like that here already, so it's cool. So yeah, we can have these as sort of like, so familiars / pets / just having a good time. Maybe Ernstein's army you can only defeat after you've been through this Sanctuary Outcast area because they've somehow stored his soul or whatever. Or maybe. How would his soul have gotten there? Because you have to kill him in Dark Souls 1. So how does his soul carry on, as it were? But you can use his soul to turn it into his spear. Or turn a spear into his spear, if that makes sense. So maybe the soul is sort of in the spear. Maybe you get the spear in the Outcast area. And by giving the spear to the armor, it sort of animates and you can fight it. Something like that. It is without its spear until you give it the spear. And then it becomes a fight. That might make sense. Okay, cool. So you get... the problem is we're now connecting areas together. There's going to be a lot of lines going over lines. The armors are supposed to have given up the souls to the collective, right? There are various things we've come up with. I don't think we've settled on one idea yet. Maybe they can be some sort of enforcers. Oh, working for the collective. Interesting. Or hunters. Cool. These are cool ideas. Okay, so should we put Medusa in Outcasts then? So we got the crossover from Mirrors to Outcasts, Outcasts to Armor. Animated armor. Stop with the speech marks. Enforcers / hunters. So these guys have actually sided with the collective and are working for them, which kind of makes sense. That is pretty much it. You're accurate there, miss. It's annoying that the GIFs and the stickers don't show up on screen, but yeah, it's the classic GIF of the man going insane in front of the board of conspiracy theories. I don't know what that's from. I imagine it's from a kind of Parks and Rec style sitcom thing. What are we doing? We are doing, yes, so enforcers / hunters. I like that idea. That's cool. Because then it's not like these guys are hiding. These guys are very much known by the collective. And this is just sort of in its own world. We haven't quite established the connection to the collective yet. Apart from the fact that the collective's after it. Always Sunny. Okay, fair enough. And these guys are just these guys are the outcasts. So it's sort of the interesting. They represent different dynamics with the relationship with the collective, which is pretty cool. Yeah. So optional, non-aggressive, get spear, containing soul. From beating outcast area. So this is like that. Let's move you over here. Celts. Oops. So I suppose, hang on, it makes sense. Let me just. I did a lot of this when I was plotting out the story of the Forest of Doom. An awful lot of moving arrows and nodes around, trying to get the most efficient sort of representation. Yeah. Keep it tidy. When we're done with Forest of Doom, I'm going to show you that. Stop there. Aha, saved it. What's going on? Who? What? The guy with the scene from Always Sunny is not from Pacific Rim. The guy from Always Sunny is in Pacific Rim. Oh, it is Pacific Rim. Okay, it looks like a sitcom. So I'd certainly excuse anyone for thinking it's from a sitcom. You exit through the mirror and it shatters as you go through. You get the mirror piece and that allows you to beat this optional friend. Right. I need to hang on. I need to do this just for my own sanity. Cool. Done. Right. So we've done that. We've done that. I like that. That's cool. Yeah, you get the spear from there. That's cool. I don't know any others that might work. So getting something from the animated armor allows you to beat one of these things, which is optional. I don't know what would be optional on a chessboard, but I suppose the only thing that actually really matters is the king. Maybe the queen? Sorry. Dunno. I mean, the bishops heal one another, so maybe you need to get a thing to stop them doing that. But they don't have to do that in our game. I don't know. You don't, but it's okay. You're wrong. Ah, it's all good fun. The internet is misleading. Never. The internet told me it wasn't. And who was right, Travis? Here we go. In chess, if you walk upon to the other side of the board, you get a piece back, right? Yes, you do. You can turn it into whatever piece you want. Maybe we can do something with that? Yeah, possibly. Like a pawn. So maybe you get another queen. Maybe there's a second queen that comes back and it's different and you have to... Because that's the thing you want, really, is you want a queen. You completely missed the GIF because it was away from your iPad. That's fair. You only have my description to go for, so... Thought it was what Try posted first in Discord. What if we sacrifice our bodies to the collective? Just kidding. Unless... I mean, you could have that as a... You know, Bloodborne has that, doesn't it? Like, instead of fighting Gehrman, you just say, yeah, sure, chop me head off. Like... You've collected the souls that the collective was after, and you can just go, sure, take me, I've got your souls. You know, you can work on the side of the collective. We can have that as a bad end, as it were. Well, not necessarily bad, but just an end where you don't carry on. I think that's the interesting thing about Dark Souls, is there's sort of difficult to tell what's good and what's bad. Because it's pretty much all bleak. So... Offer self to collective before fight. I do like the idea, though. I like the idea of, like, because Plamp said, like, right at the beginning, the idea of this being just like a wandering boss. Maybe it's not this is a wandering boss, but maybe there's like smaller clumps, if that makes sense, of corpses that are kind of building up to rejoin this, that you could find wandering around. Yeah, like little scouts or something. So like kind of mini collectives. If you break his helmet, all the corpses fall out. That's the weak point. Clumps. Makes sense. Lumps came up with the idea. So. And the more of them you take down, it sort of mitigates how powerful it gets from all the murder you do. Oh, okay, so it's kind of like... Oh, that's interesting. So... So... Collective... power to plus equal to enemies killed. This is Living Failures. I like this music. It's based on Mars, which I also listened to today, strangely. But minus equals clumps killed. I like that, that's fun. They're all wandering in the same direction. At first you don't notice, but then you see them, they'll line up at one point in the game. Oh, so it's kind of like the Final Fantasy VII, the reunion. That's cool. That's nice. Imagine you get to the end of the final boss, just fucking destroys you. Yeah. Would you even know about this mechanic because Dark Souls isn't the most communicative of games? Yes, exactly. It'll take a while for people to work it out. Speedrunners have the best time because they don't kill anything. It's actually really easy to speedrun this game. Again, the thing I really like about this format is we could make a game with this. Like, we don't have to have these explicit bosses. We have basically designed a game. or the story of a game, the sort of plot of a world. Let's make a game. This is what I quite like about this idea. It's like an AU, but it's so far removed from the original that it's, you know, we used... It's a bit like... Have you ever seen... do you know the game Jazz Punk? There's a game called Jazz Punk, and I really like it. It's got an odd sense of humour, but its style and its music are very interesting. But it has an opening cutscene. Beware flashing images if you decide to look it up. And it's got this sort of cool, strange music going on behind it. And lots of interesting imagery and all that sort of stuff. And someone worked out that if you put Tank from Cowboy Bebop over the top of it, it syncs up perfectly. It feels like they designed the intro around Tank and then made music to go with what they'd made, if that makes sense. I think this is what it is. I think it's like we're designing the structure of a game around bits and pieces from another game, and then we can get rid of those bits and pieces and put in our own stuff. It's pretty cool. Also, everyone listen to Tank. It's a very good piece of music. Okay, still don't quite know where these guys sort of fit in, but we got sort of Bad End, which is just Take Me Collective. And then these are the sort of the 4 important boss souls. I don't know. What's this? Is this Gaping Dragon? Oh, 4 King. I'm bad. This is the second time we've heard someone talk about Tank in as many days. Anyway, BRB. Tank's good. Persona 5 has a similar thing too. The opening animation can kind of sync up with Tank too. Tank is, if you want an exciting animation, do it to Tank, because you should. So we still don't really have anything for Skull thing to do. And what's interesting about that is this is the last boss of Dark Souls 2, kind of. Depending, I mean, the original game. It's the last boss of the original game. And we haven't mentioned it, which is neither does the game, to be honest. It comes out of nowhere. Yeah, subsequent version of the last patch of the original game and Scholar of the First Sin. Technically, this is the last boss if you do certain quest things right. But this is the true sort of final boss. It looks really interesting. Yeah, this is Nashandra. This is the queen that corrupted this guy and made bad things happen. This is the king. Is actually a king. Which, yeah, queen. Yes, this is the queen. She is a queen. Her sort of lower half sort of goes out to like a big dress of skulls. But, and is much taller than that. But, as in queen for a chessboard? As in optional boss? Ooh! Oh, that's a good idea. Optional queen. A queen that has only just formed from death. I'm on board. I like this. Optional. Pawn formed. Queen. Do we do something to facilitate the forming of the queen and we can only fight it when we do that? Or do we need to get something from somewhere else in order to kill it? Thrice divorced. Divorced, beheaded, died. Is that only a British thing? Probably. Who else cares about Henry VIII? So we've already got something from the cult. We've already got something from the outcasts. So we need to get something from the animated armor place in order to make this happen. And then we need to get something from the chest place in order to have an optional boss hit. What could be in an animated armor place to form a queen? Crown, I suppose. But this doesn't have a crown, so it doesn't quite work. I don't know. And even her weapon's like a bone scythe. That's not something you'd find in a place, you know, revolving around the concept of metal. Maybe this is where the ballet boy is actually important thing can come in. Maybe. I like your thinking. Take two problems and use them to solve one another. Always a big fan of that sort of system. Okay. What can they do then? What can they do? What is their connection? What is their significance here? I suppose they're in sort of. Are they in charge? Maybe they're not in charge. Maybe like. It's kind of a similar thing to the chessboard where we've got, you know, we have the king, but that's not what's really in charge. It's the player that's in charge. In this case, we have like, this is the sort of the general of the forces that are these enforcers or hunters or whatever. But you've actually got this thing which is, you know, like an advisor or something, sort of pulling the strings behind the scenes. Love you some royal drama, always. Could be an idea. I'm a big fan of the idea. So just going to Dark Souls 2 for a second. This guy, or this suit of armor, whatever it is called the Pursuer. And one of the things that it does in the game is it turns up in various locations, sort of as like, you know, boss turns into enemy thing, but it does it. It kind of just appears out of nowhere to get you, to attack you. It's after you, explicitly. It is pursuing you. So I feel like that could actually work really well with the concept of sort of people hunting down, or these guys, these suits of armor hunting down souls. You know, this is the pursuer. This is the scout, as it were. Ballet Boy got a Twitter receipts. About to cancel. So yeah, maybe it's something to do with. Okay, so this maybe it's sort of. Oh, general maybe, sort of general. Of. Enforcers. And then we could have like advice of actually pulling strings. It's like Mixed X in Resident Evil 2. I've forgotten. Do you know what? I don't actually think I've seen the end of that game. I've seen a lot of playthroughs of the beginning part. Oh dear. See, this try you have no luck. Even when you make something that is perfectly coherent, I still don't understand it because of my lack of knowledge. I'm sorry. Okay, so we got that. Maybe sort of get something from the chess place to help with the anonymity. What would that be? I don't know, something to do with a bell, I suppose. What do advisors have that can kill a queen? Well, it's not this. Well, yeah, it probably would be the killing, isn't it? But no, because we have this situation where like, or this might just be a one-off because Ornstein is sort of fan service, doesn't have to fight. What have we got? That is Mr. X. Either to form or kill a queen. Yeah, it could be either, but it might just be that most of them are you get what you get, you know, like Zelda. You get the thing that helps you kill. But Ornstein's just on their own because it's like, it's nice to have Ornstein around and you don't have to kill them if you don't want to. And you can choose to go, you can have your soul back and become a fighter again, you know. He pops up at you throughout the game. Oh, I see. Sorry, you were talking about the Pursuer. I get you. Yes, absolutely. This is the Pursuer is our Mr. X. Excellent. No, excellent. I didn't mean, that wasn't intentional. Oh, Staryu. This is a very happy looking Staryu. What if Queen wants to be the player? Ooh. So maybe Wait, I'm waiting. What if Queen wants to be florist? Ooh. You had something and lost it. Put a question mark there. And there's not a lot going on in the Cult of Identity to be able to go, okay, let's have an optional boss. Shards from their weapons once defeated creates a blade that can permanently kill the Undead Queen? Maybe. Maybe, yeah, maybe the advisor sort of had a pact with this Undead Queen or whatever, which allowed them sort of both to mutually abuse their system, their sort of points of power, as it were. Queen wants to be a player and Ballet Boy was advisor. What more can I say? You lost it again. That's fine, that's fine. Yeah, so maybe like they... But the advisor is still after souls, and these guys have souls. They're just... So maybe he's like... He has a collateral. He keeps something so that if she ever double crosses him, he can go, ah, yeah, but I can kill you with this. Maybe something like that. Like, he's smart enough to know not to put absolute trust into this situation, and as a consequence has kind of like a fail-safe switch. Also, this is a kind of a hidden queen, as it were. This is we already have our queen in the form of Scorpion Lady. This is a queen that was made from a pawn, and sort of more befits this king, as it was in the original game. But this is more drama than gameplay. That's absolutely... We're talking about story here. We're not talking about gameplay. Gameplay is a nice thing if we can add it in, but it's absolutely not essential. General of Pursuer wants the soul of the chess pieces. Okay, that makes sense. Like the idea of the advisor wanting to take over as the player. Ah. Influences Undead Queen to want to overthrow Bellboy. Okay, so it's sort of manipulating the Queen. So he can get souls easier. Ah, okay. So if I go... What are we calling these? Enforcers? So the enforcers get souls. Maybe the advisor was the one who pushed this pawn to become a queen in the first place. Maybe that's not a natural thing. And as a consequence, they're the one who have sort of complete control because they're at sort of the behest of the thing that gave them this power. But also has a way to undo it. So once she overthrows them and gets the souls for the collective, they need to get rid of the queen. Okay, that makes sense. All of this lore is significantly deeper than anything that is in Dark Souls 2. Because she's powerful, yeah. There's no point overthrowing a system... There's no point trying to overthrow a system with some sort of coup if the new people who are going to be in charge aren't going to, you know... You're not going to be able to do anything with them either. If anything, they're going to be more powerful. You got to have some sort of control over the situation, so... Advisor or general, doesn't matter particularly. It's like the advisor and the player are in the game and you're kind of interrupting. Oh, okay, that's interesting. So these sort of factions are kind of in battle with one another, but the advisor So the enforcers and the chess people are at war, but the advisor is sort of kind of colluding to take them down and also get power for himself or themselves. Ballet Boy has a poison or something? Maybe, yeah. So I think advisor's the one pulling the strings here. Has a sort of fail-safe. To kill Pawn Queen. Ballet Boy, scheming boy, absolutely. Got a worm tongue. Ooh, that's not spell advisor. Scheming advisor, that's cool. And then there's some sort of connection between beating the chess people and getting something for the Cult of Anonymity. But alas, this is where we're going to have to end the stream, unfortunately. This turned out a lot more interesting and fun and enjoyable than I was expecting it to. This could have gone horrifically wrong, but I should have guessed by the fact that you guys always love coming up with alternate universe stuff anyway, that it was a good time. I like this. This is fun. This is a cool idea. Probably not another stream's worth in this game, but I'll definitely consider it for other games in future. It was a fun idea. I might post this at some point, slightly more coherent, at the Discord. But yeah, we can absolutely continue this in the Discord. Absolutely, yes. I also really like the story we've created because we spent time on it. I would like to say just before we end this that one of the reasons Dark Souls 2's story is virtually non-existent is because they basically had to fire their director and remake the game almost from scratch a year before it had to be released. Which, given that, they did a remarkable job. I can forgive Dark Souls 2 for so many things because of that. How does Fire Tree move about? He kind of goes under the ground and then pops up other places. Just a bit weird. But that's what they do. So they can kind of, yeah, traveling NPC. Can pop out whenever they need to. I think in the game, they tend to pop out of where bonfires are. So we could do that as well. That's what the character would do. Not necessarily. We could change that. No problem with that. Oh, happy friend. Going to end on that. Yeah, I just thought this might be an interesting idea, and it was really fun. And it's also nice to have these streams where we chat, and I get to read chat, and chat has a big part of the overall sort of theme. Yeah, it's good when you have input. You know, the boss brushes are fun, but it's basically me not reading your kind words and interesting stuff for 2 hours. So. It's nice to have the opposite of that, you know? So, yeah. Thank you, everyone, for coming along. It was very enjoyable. Hope you had a good time. I will consider this in future. By all means, suggest other games that you would like to see, us do this for. Yeah. It was cool. It's always nice when things like this work out. Hope you didn't talk too much. Absolutely not. This is a stream about suggesting ideas. I'm all on board for people suggesting things. It's cool. You get excited with story stuff? Well, you're going to like this series, because apparently it's a series now. We're going to enjoy having you here. Thanks for the AU you wish were real now. I mean, we have a history of this, don't we, with Final Fantasy and stuff. Triforce is yelling at me for reasons. Triforce is proud. Thank you. That's very kind. Not sure why. Whoops, all AU. That seems to be it. We're writing fanfic. I'm advertising. Oh yeah, the carousel thing. Yeah, I set that up so that I could. Yay, rock! Get old rock. I mainly set that up so that I could put patrons' names on stream in a place that wouldn't clutter everything up. And I thought, well, I could also advertise things while I'm here because I'm bad at doing that on Twitter. So yeah, where's your name? It's not up there yet. You and Kiro will be up there soon. Don't worry. And I will also have a frame for advertising your guys' streams as well, because that's always cool. You'll be up there. Don't worry, you'll be up there. So yeah. But thank you very much for being enthusiastic about that. So I thought you might like it, but then I forgot that I did. literally made these an hour before we started streaming, so I'm only level 8 in my chat. It's terrible. So anyway, tomorrow, we continue with the Forest of Doom draw through. Should be fun. Sorry about last week, but thank you for all the stickers. Thank you for the Sparkbot and for the Corgi friend. Yes, so tomorrow we do the...
That wasn't necessary of you, but you have my thanks.
Love you, Parsnip.
Well, how dare you? Thank you very much, Try. That's very kind of you. Stop with the conflustering. I'm trying to end the stream. Thank you very much, Try. That's very kind. You do know that Patreon comes out at the end of the month, right? I could do you another drawing if you want. Send you more stickers. So this is for this month. Okay, I've got to come up with more stickers just for Try. Thank you. I'm bad at people being nice to me. You're very kind, you're very nice. Yes. Come on, brain, restart. Tomorrow we have Legend of Try stickers. I mean, I could probably make some stickers just for Try. I mean, they've given me a lot. So, or you mean making me compluster? You're absolutely not. You're absolutely anything but. I know it's a kind of preaching to the choir here, but if anybody is watching who doesn't already watch Triforce's streams, watch Triforce's streams. They are streaming, I think, tomorrow evening, or tomorrow morning for me, or something like that. Times are bad. Look up Triforce's streaming things. Triforce is delightful, absolutely. They're doing, I think you're carrying on Breath of Fire, on your next stream, something like that. So yeah. I still have to watch the rest of the VOD because you're a bad friend. No, I did finish it. Yeah, I did finish it, yeah. You don't watch the stream. How dare you, miss? How dare you? In 4.25 hours, oh, it's literally in a bit. Oh, okay, cool. Well, I better shut up then, because I'm going to overrun. Yeah. So, Triforce is doing that. Emily's, I presume, also streaming, I guess it would be Starmie. Should be fun. Waffle for 4.25 hours. I probably could. It's filibustering. I could probably do that. I have plenty of time, maybe. So tempting to stay up to shout at Try Live. I mean, that would be at like 2 in the morning for you? For a 3.5 hour stream or whatever it is? Emily's streaming in 7 3/4 hours from now. Okay. When Hannibal was on air, you did that every Tuesday. Okay, fair enough. It's nice to know that Try means as much to you as Hannibal. That's a big compliment. So yeah. Yeah. Anyway, tomorrow, Forest of Doom draw through. We continue with that. Sorry about missing last week. But we will carry on. We're doing well. We're getting there. Yeah. Progress is being made. And I still have yet to show off Mrs. very cool art from last week. Or not last week, the week before. Finished last week, but of the week before. It's very good. If you do Link Zelda stickies, you can make them universal and sell them. I mean, you're welcome to suggest that as a theme for the next time. I'm actually tempted to make more stickers just randomly between now and then because I want to make stickers. Yeah. Sigh. Don't sigh, miss. Your art is wonderful. And I'm sorry I couldn't use it because I was stressed. But we will use it tomorrow. And as a consequence, we'll not be able to use my little advertising carousel. But yeah. And then on Saturday is XCOM and Sunday is a wildcard where we will finish off the nonsense souls and then maybe do some Jackbox. Yeah. Not secret art, just misses stuff. How do you have emotions in a life? Yeah. It's not often. It's not often it happens, but given the current situation, stop having a life. I mean, I stopped having a life like 12 years ago. That's how I've got so much done. You guys are definitely the closest to a life I've had for a very long time, so I'm pleased with that. That's nice. It's a good life. It's a good life to have. Put the whole chart for this stream's story in Discord, please. You want to write it all out? Absolutely, I can. I'll probably add some bits and bobs for things that we said, but I didn't write down. I will not stop. You improve my life. You make me happy. Dark Souls AU we made up is more important than school, right? I mean, might end up being as long as the book on art that you got. That's very kind. Only terrible things, I assume. I'm glad I can do something to help and be nice. That's my aim. Try and improve net happiness in the world. That's my goal. As are you, miss. As are you. So I should end. Aww. Thank you. It's very kind. Even though it didn't pop up on the thing. Interesting. That didn't register for some reason, but I saw it. Thank you very much. It's very nice. There it is again. For some reason. I don't know if Mix is just messing around. Anyway, hugs. Hugs are nice. Crow went through. More glitched GIFs. I've seen that hug animation 3 times now, but that's every time is worth it. 4. It keeps hugging. Infinite hugs. You've played the system, miss. Well done. I'm tempted not to end the stream now because it's just going to keep going. You need to go before you start crying. You're very emotional. Hug oops! Everyone hug oops. But you do. You guys, you genuinely make my life better, and I hope I can do the same. A little bit. In return. So, you are the knight. Anyway, have a wonderful time, everyone. Enjoy yourselves. We can continue this back at Discord. And yeah, thank you for doing this. This turned out to be a much bigger success than I expected. Hopefully we can do it again soon. And yeah, that's why I like doing random creative streams. See what we can do. See you tomorrow for Forest of Doom. Oh no, it's stopped now. That's a shame. Oh. Goodbye, everyone.